stint over there. And that is where we really bonded because of the like-mindedness and the work that we had to do, the late hours and everything, the proper agency life. It has been what, like around 4, 5 years now,
More.
more than that. And since then, we are still friends, and we upgraded, graduated, and becoming neighbors now. They just lives right next to, I mean, the next building where I live in Mumbai right now. He started his career on a professional front. He started his career with Haymarket, and then moved and escalated in what last like 10 years, right, in the industry. And right now, he's a pure play, handling the brand Plum. Today, he will be talking to us about how media actually helps the brand grow, and will give his inputs. And we have got some few questions that we have collated, Tejas, that we'll
Okay.
be asking you. But before that, beyond my personal anecdotes and everything, I think Megha, both of them, has worked with you in the past, right? So they would want to share their experiences working with you, knowing you and understanding you. Megha Hoja, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I think Tejas, I'm only going to say good things, huh? Don't worry.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think I think when I met you, or I think when I hired you also, I think post that, I think I got to learn a lot of things from you, apart from just the basic Excel, because everybody here knows I'm really poor at Excel. But I think the kind of clear thinking that you have on anything and everything is so good. I mean, इतनी कॉम्प्लेक्स सी चीज तो कैसे सिंपल तरीके से एक्सप्लेन कर देता है, which is super, was something to do. And I think we have enormous amount of patience that you have. So I think there have been times, whether it's been me or whether it's been Monica also, or for that, for a lot of other team members also during our PhD time, when
Yeah.
we knew कि अगर इसे एक से ज्यादा बार से 2 बार पूछ लोगे ना तो गाली नहीं देगा, समझा देगा दोबारा से बड़ी तसल्ली से. And I think naturally you have a very, I don't know how much you know about it, but a very team builder ability of nurturing people. So a lot of things that I
Honestly.
learned from you. So thank you, Tejas, to be part of my journey that I have been with you. So it's been great. And
Thank you so much.
thank you so much for coming here and joining us. It means a lot to all of us.
Thank you so much to you for calling me. I hope I can add some value, because I mean, I'll try my best. But thank you so much for calling me, and yeah, looking forward to the session. And I think all of you all have probably the best time of working with Mega Uja, because sorry, I'm used to calling Mega Uja and Mega Jen because I know both the Megas very closely. So uh, yeah, I think, I mean, you'll have a great boss who y'all work with, because I mean, I told that to Faraz also before joining Densu, that you need to think about work, because I think with Mega you don't need to think about acha boss kaisi hogi kya hoga kuch nahi, because I mean, personally, one of the best people I've met in my life, and I think that is more important when you're working with someone day in and day out. So yes, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Megha Jain, would you want to share your experiences?
Yeah, Tejas, are you ready?
Oh my God, this is what I dread most, more than even the questions that will come.
Okay, so to be honest, I have known Tejas for more than 12 years now.
Yeah.
We worked together at OMD and PhD, and went on to become friends, close friends, as good as family. So that's been my journey with him. A couple of things that I want to tell you guys about him is that he's super, super organized and disciplined, like me, which I'm very happy about.
Trying to reach that level, but yes.
So, when a brief comes in, if there are details which are missing, he's the one who's probably going to point it out and ask the client, or, be so detail oriented that nothing's going to get missed out. So, he's like super disciplined and organized like that. I think Mega's already mentioned, but his fundamentals are super clear. So, and his knowledge about keeping himself up to speed on whatever's going on in the industry. has just come out, and he will sort of know everything through and through just by reading the white paper, whereas all of us would be struggling to understand till the time someone comes and explains it. And I personally have gone to Tejas on multiple occasions to, give me an explanation about this, that, whatever. So right from programmatic to performance marketing to e-commerce to basic, people have come up to him and asked him TVR calculation kaise hota hai. So as basic as that. And he'll patiently sit and explain to anybody, senior, junior, it doesn't matter. His expertise there is, something which is really commendable. And The last thing that I'd like to say is, if you're at a bar and there's Bollywood music and there's Anil Kapoor playing, Mera Naam Hai Lagan, then you will definitely find Tejas on the floor. He's the
Yes,
biggest Anil
with
Kapoor
Mega.
fan with me that I know. So yeah, that's from me, and let's not waste any more time. We can get to the
Yes.
actual
Th-
topic.
Thank you so much. I think this is the nicest 5 minutes that you've spoken of me since I know you.
Ever.
Yes.
Now never.
Wow. Wow.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great. So, Tejas, I guess, I mean, you're all comfy and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, then. First question. How are you feeling? No, no, I'm just kidding. Okay. No, no. Starting from, I mean, let's get into this very fact that people are more interested. Uh, as I said earlier, that you started your career with Haymarket, then moving into Madison, OMD, Mediacom, PhD, and then finally you went into HUL at one point of time, and where you spent the most time, right? About more than 4 years, in fact, right?
Yeah.
And then you got into Skinsciences with handling the brand and making the brand Phi and Plum and all on your own. So one very, I would say, a simple question would be, if I would want to ask, you have been part of the agency side for all this while, and now that you have crossed onto the other side, that's the client side, even at HUL,
Yeah.
what do you think is the difference between the agency life and the life right now, or for the past 5 years being on the client side?
Yeah, I think apart from the obvious of, I mean, timing and work-life balance, which also, to be very honest, doesn't always happen even on the brand side, because as in it depends on day to day exactly how it is on agency side, and I've spent more time on agency side, so I can definitely say that. But apart from that, I think it's understanding of business. So once you move to the brand side, for example, I mean, let's take HUL, where I was handling foods and refreshments as a category. I mean, when you move to that side, you are not expected to only uh, speak with the brand and tell them, अच्छा मैं यहाँ पे ऐसे ये plan बन जाएगा. You need to understand the business. Probably you can't understand the business as well as what the brand managers do, but you are expected to do that. So I mean, how much of a closer you can get to understanding the business is uh, is what being on the brand side helps with, because I think
Hmm.
either agency or brand, if we as media people, if we manage to do that, then I think our job just gets easier more than anything else. So that is the biggest difference that I have seen, because on the brand side, you get that opportunity to learn how a business is done, and hence you get to add much more skill sets, which probably obviously depends on interest, etc. But it definitely helps from that point of view. So I think understanding business is what I would say is the biggest difference between the two.
Okay. And have you ever felt like working at the brand side, maybe restricting your category, while on the agency side you get to work, I mean, with lot of dynamism and new brands that you, not just brands, let's just say categories. Does that,
Absolutely. Yeah,
you
yeah.
feel that these
Because,
days?
yeah, I mean, because if today someone would come and ask me, oh, okay, I mean, how are the automobile plans done? I think the last that I've touched that was 6 years ago, right? Having said that, media fundamentals, what I believe does not change.
True.
Mediums will change, platforms will change, fundamentals remain the same, which you can take forward. And that is again connected to business, because if you understand business, then you will understand media fundamentals accordingly. And uh, hence, I mean, you do miss uh, not working on multiple categories, industries, because sometimes it is much more fun, right? Otherwise you're doing the same thing day in and day out when you're
True.
working on one particular category, on one particular brand.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, there are pros and cons in terms of if you want to understand the business better, then the brand side helps you do that. On the agency side, obviously you understand multiple businesses and probably not. So the depth and the width is what where the difference lies, ideally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, because we have been talking about the categories,
Yeah.
I'll skip on the harder question as to which has been your favorite agency to work with. Why not? Why not we
I
talk
would not
about the
answer that.
categories that we can talk later. So,
Yes.
in your experience of a good one decade of it, you have worked on chocolates, confectionaries, auto, hair care, skin care, everything,
Yeah.
almost everything, if I would want to say it that way. Which has been your favorite category?
I think without a doubt, from a larger category perspective is FMCG, and within FMCG, it's beauty and personal care.
Mhm.
And I mean, I can honestly answer that in one line of why, because your number of category entry points, as what has been defined today, I mean, are probably a lot more when it comes to FMCG, and especially within that beauty and personal care. Because if you think about from where you can buy that product, it will range from obviously everything from a retail to e-commerce, as we know, to a website, or to even quick commerce today, right? So
Mhm.
the more the category entry points increase, the more the complexity increases for us on how do you plan your budgets, how do you plan your media. And obviously I'm counting media as one when
Mm.
you also consider
Yeah,
e-commerce and quick commerce. So I think and hence the answer for me is very clear, it's beauty and personal care, and hence that is where I am right now within FMCG in beauty and personal care. Yeah.
so is it safe to say that it is because of the complexity and the challenges which comes with the
Absolutely.
dynamic nature
I
of
mean,
an
obviously I
FMCG
don't think so
category?
any category is not complex or not challenging. I'm sure, I think you all work with Intel, and that is where B2B
Yeah.
comes up, etc., right? So that is something I have not worked on. So for me, that would be really challenging. But it, and at the end of the day, hence I think it depends on what interests you and what space do you want to be in. I really like the B2C space. Within the B2C space, as I said, I mean, multiple category entry points just helps you do something more every day. I
Right.
mean, one of the
Right.
points also that we
Yeah.
discussed, right? Of when you asked in agency, you can have work on multiple brands versus on a brand you'll only
Mm.
be working on one brand. Now, when I add the complexity of where all your brand is available and hence what new I can do, that is where a beauty and personal care works for me, right? Because I mean, if you ask me 2 years earlier, have I ever worked on e-commerce? No. Today, quick commerce is something
Mm.
new that we are exploring and we are understanding. So that is also a new leaf in the, or a new line item or a media channel in the entire media planning process that we have today. So from that perspective, it's just more interesting. And my assumption is new media touchpoints are always going to keep on coming up with regards to when consumers have more and more entry points from where they can buy products. So yeah.
Got it. Got it. So I think it's like agency life is better if you're on the client side, be at the FMCG side.
For me, yes.
Just kidding. Got it. Got it. Okay, we'll move into more closer to the topic itself right now.
Yeah.
Talking about the brand building, I know there is no one single answer to this question. It's very subjective depending on the experiences and work experiences and everything. But which media touch point is the most crucial for a brand building, according to you? Maybe you can give an example of the current brands that you're working on. That's fine. But which one do you think is the most crucial?
I think, as you said, there is not one answer.
Yeah.
And what needs to be put into perspective is, so obviously I'm a true believer of reach, and I have been schooled at HUL. I mean, that is where my massive spike in media learning has happened. I mean, at PhD, while working for HUL or within HUL itself, right? So uh, reach is something that I always stand by. And I'm sure, I think by now Byron Sharp has now become very popular, which wasn't in earlier times. So Ering Bass Institute, Byron Sharp, with the studies that they have come across, they've come out, uh, really just reinstates reach. But I think reach into relevance matters a lot. in terms of relevance to your own consumer who you are trying to reach out to. And also, since you've asked me currently from a plum perspective, right, at the end of the day, also your brand life stage and where your brand is present. So I think your media touchpoint also will get
Hmm.
defined basis that. Now today, if you're a new brand, you're only available on e-commerce versus you're a legacy brand which is built on offline. Your
Hmm.
media touchpoint obviously is going to change because the consumer who you are reaching out to will change, and hence your media touchpoint and what is going to be a priority media touchpoint changes basis that. So I think reach into relevance and where the stage of where your brand is matters a lot, and
Hmm.
your key places from where you are selling today, right? So because if I'm
Hmm.
not available where my consumer is interacting with me, then it's of no use. I mean, I can't retail में strong होके मैं नहीं बोल सकता I'm going to advertise a lot on Amazon. So I
Hmm.
mean the two are not
Hmm.
going to correlate, right? So yeah.
True. Got it. Now, because we are talking about everything related to the brand and talking about relevant reach, that is one point.
Yeah.
Uh, how would you like to define that? So the question would be, if I would want to simply put, what are the metrics and measurements which are the most crucial to the being a market on the client side or the brand side? The reason being, because right now when we are working, we look at some numbers like a CPRP or a GRP or a CPM, etc., etc. The
Yeah.
media metrics part of it. It definitely translates into some measurements and metrics which help you to take a decision as a marketer. Can
Yes.
you just shed some light on that one?
uh okay, so basis from what I've learned and what I understand and what we track also right now. So if you go from what has been happening all these years and till date, what is really important is Pont and Tom, right? Whenever that you're doing
Hmm.
media, unless you're doing performance media, obviously then that is driven by what ROAS, etc., CAC that you're getting. But when I talk about brand building, right? Brand building, and in today's day and age, when obviously in one of the brands that even I work for, like which is a D2C startup, and it's no longer a D2C. Obviously, it's available across all channels,
Hmm.
but the brand has been grown basis performance, right? So at the end of the day, brand building as a question, which is a very long term play, always comes under question. अच्छा मैंने campaign तो कर लिया, अभी इसका क्या? So that is where I think there are two worlds which needs to meet. One is, for example, in HUL, where uh, I mean, HUL or any of these legacy brands that you would take, Spont and Tom are probably holy metrics in terms of
Hmm.
how your brand is doing, right? Sales, everyone's going to track, market share, people are going to track. But if you want to correlate with what you are doing on media and what is the impact on brand, then that's Spont and Tom. And there are studies which obviously which every brand etc they do it, that in the long term, uh, all of these metrics do correlate, right? That's Pont,
Yeah.
market share, penetration,
Hmm. Hmm.
sales, all of these metrics do correlate. But immediate impact, if you want to see, because today if I start running a TV ad and if anyone is expecting that tomorrow my sales is going to be 2x, I think that's not how things happen. And but obviously what you need to track is Pont. And obviously what is very important over here is your creative, of how good your creative is. But obviously I think we'll stick to media right now, and hence assuming that your creative is something which is tested and works well with the consumer, where the recall is happening, the brand is being recalled, etc., etc. Spont and Tom are probably the two biggest holy metrics. But in recent times, not all brands can afford to do a spontan Tom brand track.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
not done with the frequency of how it's done for larger brands, which is a rolling weekly data. Uh, I think Google share of search has become another data point,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
True.
we at Pureplay track, and a lot. I mean, obviously, a lot of us follow a lot of these
Hmm.
people on LinkedIn who share a lot of knowledge, and that will also come up in a couple of posts, right? That I've been reading, that Google share of search is something which is really tracked because it helps you understand, I mean, is your brand being searched for? And if your brand is
Yeah.
being searched for
Yeah.
in relative sense to
In
other
real
brands,
time, that too. In real time.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So then, I mean, at a monthly level, you can get that data, and probably it's almost free for all. It just
Hmm.
takes
Mm.
some work to maintain it on a monthly level, but I think it's a really good metric for to be tracked. And this, I think, accelerated again during COVID, right? Because where
Mm.
on-field studies, etc., were not happening, that is where brands really saw this as a pseudo metric sorts of that you can track, but now it's
Mm.
become part of
Mm.
one of the key brand parameters that are tracked, and that also that what we track today.
That's actually very nice. Yeah, that's true. I really like the line that where you said that आज मीडिया किया तो 2 हफ्ते में रिजल्ट नहीं आने वाले सेल्स पे. I wish
Yes.
everyone starts thinking that way.
Yeah.
That was a good
I
one.
don't think so. That question changes for if you're at an agency side or at a brand side, because even if you're at a brand side, at the end of the day, you are the media person at the brand side, and you're not the brand manager. So you are going to be asked that question internally, how agencies are asked. So that does not change at all.
Okay. Taking
Just
example
one second.
from,
Just one
yeah,
second. Sorry.
sure, sure, sure.
Yes.
I could hear it from there. So,
Oh.
okay. I'll just club two other questions that we have got
Yeah.
because maybe it's from the same point of understanding that the question was asked from. Um, does sales equate to brand building? For an example, if I'm trying to understand if there is a brand which has got a good brand building exercise done, does it necessarily convert into sales? That will be one question. And if so, how responsive it is. I mean, there have been cases in the past where the brand building has been done at a perfectly amazing level, but the sales didn't turn out to be the way it was expected. So, would you like to throw some light on the relationship between brand building and sales? Or maybe it depends on the life stages, or you can talk about that at your own personal experiences with Pureplay.
I think kind of you answered the one gap over there in your question itself, right? I mean, even if the brand equity is strong or the spont is good,
Mm,
Tom is good,
mm,
etc., right? But at the end of the day, that's just one part of the six piece that happened, right? I mean,
mm.
if today your brand is very strong, but you're not available, and be it
Okay.
from
Mhm.
any lens, right? I mean, an automobile can have like say 2 years waiting, or I go and buy one simple shampoo, and from where I am purchasing, that's not available. Then that's equally as important to as having mental availability, right? As we call physical reach and mental reach.
Mm,
So we are saying that mental reach is great, but what about physical reach? And then other things in terms of your pricing has to be correct. What is the positioning? Does it
mm,
appeal to the consumers, etc.? So I think I mean,
mm,
it can't work in isolation. Nothing can work in isolation if you want growth. I can't just say, अच्छा मेरा product उधर available है, and I don't do media and I do not have mental reach, then how do we expect the product to sell? Obviously, it will sell, but then one needs to be aligned to the pace of growth that your particular brand will have, right? So, uh, I think first a brand needs to evaluate all of the parameters and
mm,
then correlate the two when we are trying to understand, अच्छा मेरा brand तो हो गया but sales नहीं हुआ. And I think largely everyone understands this. I don't think so any brand, I mean, who are we to teach any brand manager at the end of the day, right? Because they have been doing that, or they have been running businesses and day in and day out, and we only
mm,
focus on media, which is one of the line items of what they do. uh, but I mean, yeah, obviously such questions do come across, and hence at that time I think it's equally important and something that at HUL at least does happen, where you also take equal ownership and understanding of other parameters of how the brand is, before you understand that is it something wrong that I'm doing from media perspective. And there might be, and obviously there'll be
mm,
opportunities in every scenario, but need to correlate the two. And but in the long term, it's like assuming if अच्छा दूसरा सब भी सही है और मेरा brand building भी हो रहा है, am I going to get sales? I think definitely yes. There are studies which have been done which do correlate and which do show that in the long term you are going to get sales. And I'm not saying
mm,
long term के 2 साल के बाद. Long term does, I mean, does not mean कि अगले हफ्ते से आएगा, but you will see that incremental sales uplift which will come in. Uh, but I think that's also related to every brand trying to understand and correlate the two. Is there a ready reckoner or ready model? I don't
Yeah.
think so. I may be wrong if there is.
Mm.
But yeah, it depends on every brand then to come up with that, or for people like us, for media people to push for that, right? So
Mm.
at the end of the day, it will help with our learnings also. That when we are suggesting to do, we are suggesting, I mean, any media plan, uh, are there any gaps that has been identified from that study that has happened, and hence accordingly improve or optimize what we are doing.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the reason probably this question popped up is because the very fundamentals of marketing, the 6 P's and all of those things, maybe in our day-to-day busy working and in running towards the deadline and trying to deliver everything, we tend to miss out on that very basic point somewhere. It's more on the lines of if media is getting done, the sales has to show that kind of an uplift, not
Correct.
understanding, or maybe understanding indeed, but missing out on that point. It always becomes like a blurry area, even in the cognizance, because of the not just say pressure, but the timelines that we are working on.
Yeah, there's a Nielsen report which
Mhm.
basically states different line items of how things impact sales, right? Which is creative, reach, brand, etc. Creative has the highest
Wow.
proportion in that, right? I mean, if I'm not wrong, it's close to 30-35%. Then follows reach, how, I mean, how good your brand is, etc., etc. So I think we need to think about I mean, all happening together as a whole and not in parts, because in parts, I don't think so the brand will be able to achieve those
True,
sales.
true that. Great
I
info.
mean,
Thank you so
we,
much.
we have a saying, I mean, that there's a saying that uh, lesser media spent on a better
Mhm.
creative is much more effective than more media spent on a creative which does not work.
True that.
So
That's a Pidilite case study, proper one on that one.
yes, exactly.
Good, thank you. Uh, Moving towards more again away from the whole brand understanding and all. Uh, in your day-to-day working, being on the client side, what is the biggest challenge that you face on a daily basis? That is probably coming out of the curiosity from an agency side, or even me over here understanding what goes on that side. So yeah.
I think kind of something that we covered up till now. It's about trying to establish which are, I mean, and when I'm having this conversation, I'm taking away performance marketing, be it on
Yeah.
e-commerce, be it,
Yeah.
I mean, any website driven performance marketing, but
Mm-hmm.
taking that away from a brand building perspective, I think the question is still the same. Is acha brand building se dhanda kitna aaya? So I think it's
Hmm.
day in and day out. If uh, because getting the best media strategy in place, how will you optimize, kaise karoge, getting principles in place, I think that's 101. There is no running away from that, but I think that's expected. When if you are the only media person on the brand side, that you are expected to know that, right? So I
Hmm.
don't think so someone's bringing you in कि अच्छा only to set media practices. That's one of the key agendas. But the larger point is कि अगर मैं spend कर रहा हूँ, तो
Hmm.
what is happening, and like I mean, what is the impact on brand, what is the impact on sales? So I think the questions don't change. It's the
Hmm.
same questions that get asked internally, same questions that are asked to agencies. It's only about how you tackle them, what are the
Right.
different I would say studies, right, that you put in place, or a different measurement criteria, I think.
Hmm.
Because in media, and this is my personal POV of having moved from agency side to the brand side, right? A lot what I understand the pressure that comes in, and obviously I've been there cognizant of that. But what we forget is when we are pitching for a certain media plan to happen, a lot of times we are guilty of not thinking about uska measurement, right? It's like acha ye
Hmm.
acha hai, let's do this like media content piece, acha
Right.
chalo ye kar lete, but what about the measurement? I think when we start clubbing it with measurement and impact on brand, it will be received well uh, by the brand, and hence there'll be more interest in terms of discussing also what you're trying to present, because you're not only
Hmm.
coming in from one lens, acha ye mera media plan hai, le lo, or this is what a new idea that I've come up with, okay, let's take this. I think the
Right.
more and more we get into the measurement piece of what we are doing in media, the closer we get to the brand, and I mean that's a personal learning, right? In and that just helps you deliver your point better, establish what you're doing
Hmm.
better, have better relationship with the brand manager. I think which eventually obviously helps.
Absolutely, well said. I think you're absolutely right when you say that if there is something new, like a buzzword which is going around in the market and all the brands are jumping onto that bandwagon,
Yeah.
it must have been like a very crucial decision for you to make, that you should your brand be also jumping into that whole stream of buzz that is going on
And
through that.
you always won't have, I mean, it's not a 1-0 game, right? That you
Yeah,
do it or you don't
yeah.
do it. There are certain bets that you take,
Hmm.
but it can't be from 100%. 50% is a bet and 50% is what you know, right? I
Right.
mean, depending on what one is comfortable or a business is comfortable with, you decide how do you skew certain experiments, because
Hmm.
not every new platform you can measure, not every new media channel,
Hmm.
media vehicle, media plan you can measure. But yeah, I mean that, but all 100% of the spends can't be done in that way. So yes.
True. Talking about spends over here, the spends, or let's say budget, there have been budget cuts across categories, and that's what the new wave in the industry has been, the media industry
Yes.
has been. Do you have any perspective on the probably like oncoming recession? If there is any planning that has been made at your end, some guardrails that you might have put up or something, any word on that?
I think recession I'm not so sure of, but
Hmm.
at least what has changed in the industry is, and because I come from a startup and I currently work at a startup, so
Hmm.
uh, it's n- while growth is obviously required, but I think companies are moving more towards profitable growth, and like at the end of the day, now profits and baseline bottom line is being questioned.
Hmm.
And when that is being questioned, I think how we, I mean, how at least I'm trying to pivot and trying to establish and is uh, basically again trying to measure the impact of what you do, right? Because otherwise
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
easy for any brand in such a scenario, and probably of what is going to come in, I mean, at least in the near future, what looks like it's going to come is मैं डायरेक्ट एट्रीब्यूशन के हिसाब से मैं काम करूंगा, जहां पे मेरे पास डायरेक्ट एट्रीब्यूशन है वहां पे पैसा डाल दो, जहां पे नहीं है वहां पे
Hmm.
मत डालो.
Hmm.
Obviously in the long term, I mean, for people who've seen it and believe in it, that's not good for the brand, because then you're not building a brand and you need to reach out to more consumer touch points. And video being the biggest, the
Yeah.
best format of how you can build brands, that does not happen when you're doing performance marketing or any channel driven marketing. So I think putting measurements in place has become even more critical, and I think it will become even more critical as we move forward,
Hmm.
to understand and to help us guide of how do you pivot your plans as per whatever the external scenarios are going to be. And it's nothing new, right? It's I mean, legacy brands have always been doing it.
Right.
There has always
True.
been a question, and measurement is equally as important as spending. So
True.
it's just doing that, yeah, for new brands.
Absolutely. Legacy brands, as always, they have already established themselves as a brand,
Yeah,
and they might be able to take. Plus, they have, like, because we're talking about measurement, measurement does comes from the plethora of data that they already have in the
yeah.
repository, right? So that is I mean, that's a very valid point that you had made over
Correct.
there.
But even then, their focus doesn't go down on that. So I
Yeah,
mean, that
true,
is the biggest
true.
thing to
Yes, indeed.
learn from any companies like HUL. Yeah. Yes.
Got that. I'll let you have some respite from the whole brand related questions. Moving to
Yeah.
some lighter, on a lighter note, while serious indeed, you have won many, many accolades in your career. The one particular one that I would want to mention, because I have seen it with my own eyes, I mean, how the whole
Yes.
experience was. I would want others to also know how it has been. The one that I'm talking about, when you actually won the Cannes Young Lions Awards from India, and then
Yes.
you also went to Cannes over there in
Yeah.
France.
Yes.
So, can you just tell me all about it? Can you tell everybody else about it? In fact, just sorry, do mention what the case was that got you to cast. I remember it. It was fabulous. It was something
Yeah.
else.
Uh, I think all three of you all, that is you, Megha, and Meghajan, I think you all know this very closely of what the process was. But just for the larger audience, I think so at that time, I not even plan to enter because I'm not very big on competition, awards, etc. As in terms of interest. But this was something like there was just a brief that was lying around, and which was about at that time. I think there was a Vodafone Idea merger that was going to happen, and so generally the briefs are as per whatever is happening in the market at that time, and it was about how would you go about the plan of of launching Vodafone and Idea. And so there was a colleague who was there, and he wasn't a very close friend at that time, which he is now. And both of us just stumbled upon, and actually we were like, let's why not explore this? And actually we got to talking because of Megagen. So that's the background story, because he knew Megagen very well and I knew her very well, and then both of us connected because both of us told her, oh, I think there is some idea that we have. And then she's like, why don't the two of you all connect, though we were in the same agency. uh, and so largely in these ideas, in these competitions, personal point of view, not backed by data, but this is how it happened with me. Your idea needs to be unique and strong, while obviously we are media people, and hence your media plan, etc., also needs to be added. But uh, I mean, just in case anyone's ever planning to do that, focus on how unique your idea is. Obviously don't lose the basics ke media kaise hoga, but don't पिविट मोर टूवर्ड्स, अच्छा लेट्स गो मीडिया में डिटेल में मैं ये भी दिखाऊंगा वो भी दिखाऊंगा एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. Focus on the idea, and I think that's what we did. And the idea had just come off the bat. We were like, if this is going to be the biggest telecom merger, what is the biggest merger that I mean, just in thought, or what is the biggest merger that we know that happens in our lives, and obviously is very big in India. That's marriages, right? So our entire campaign was around of how can we push this the Vodafone Idea merger as a marriage, and probably the biggest marriage that is happening in India. And our entire idea was around that. Then we got selected in top 10, and then the next thing, I think the next idea was about around demonetization,
Beam app.
because sorry.
Beam app.
Beam app.
Promoting the
Sorry. Yeah,
Beam
yeah,
app.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the second idea was about promoting the Beam app, and exactly even at that time, we thought about what is the biggest media channel which is there, which is not. I mean, it's not a media channel. What is biggest touch point that all of us use on a daily basis? And I mean, obviously media is not possible on that. And again, as I said, do not get bogged down by realism and what is possible and what is not possible, and which is currency, which is notes, because all of us do interact with it every day. I understand with digital payment increasing, etc., but this is a question of 2017, which so digital payments were not as big as what it is right now, and hence we use 100% 100 rupees currency note as our key media channel on how we would drive the Beam app adoption, because at the end of the day it was going to be tied up with the government, and hence to do this probably would have been possible. Again, do not think about realism over here. But what stuck with the judges was the thought of
Yeah.
figuring out a new media channel or a new touch point, a new consumer touch point, which otherwise we would have just passed over, and we would have not even thought about, and gone with the regular media touch points that all of
Yeah.
us daily plan
Which
on.
I
So
did. Yeah. The mistake that I made.
oh yeah, we had actually entered in the same year. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that is what, and obviously very good presentation, which what my colleague excels at, Ronnie, and yeah, that is what got us to France. Though
Correct.
the France experience didn't go great, but yeah.
I think it was a phenomenal thought, the whole crux of that idea. While we both worked on the Vodafone idea, in fact, it was Dodafone. So Dodia was the
Dodia.
new merger, and I
Yeah.
actually worked on that and got shortlisted. But the
Yes.
whole crux of the idea about using the currency note itself as a touch point in order to promote something which is off government, the Beam app.
And which is
That
related to
was
money. So I
fantastic.
think
Yeah, that
reach
was
into relevance.
wow. That's the one.
Sorry,
And
I
hence
have
you
to
are
plug
there
it.
where you are right now. Amazing.
Yes.
I think as we had earlier committed, trying to get you to get done within 7 p.m. mark. Just one last question.
Yeah.
Have you finally achieved the far-fetched dream of striking that work-life balance? Being on the agency side, being where you are, and being the media lead and 10 years in the industry. Got that?
I think uh I, see, I think work life balance is well, I don't think so in media. I mean, anyone's probably going to achieve that. But I think it's also subjective, right? If you can schedule your work better, then you can finish on time. And
Mm.
for me, work life balance is, there will be certain days, weeks where you need to over
Yes.
invest behind work, and at that time you do that. But at the end of the day, when you need time for your personal life, and obviously with multiple things happening around, at that time if your work lets you do that, I think that's a very healthy space to be in.
Mm.
Because I mean, at least I don't believe in acha 6 baj gaya to nikal jao. I've never worked that way. I've
Mm.
always worked basis uh, I mean, what I like finishing in a day and what I would like to carry forward to the next day. So I'm never, while I'm very disciplined in terms of time, I
Yes.
do start by 9 and I do try and get over by 6. But obviously, there are days which go up and down. And till the time I know I'm getting time for my personal life, even if it's not on a daily basis, I think that's a
Mm.
very healthy work life balance to have.
Understood. It's more like a uh, with experience you got more discipline, and plus you were always disciplined, as even Megha did mention. And plus I have worked with you, I've
Yes.
always admired the way you work. I mean, while we have had our uh, experiences of fun and frolic in the agency as well as moving outside and everything, but it
Yes.
was the way you work which is something that I've adored in my life, like almost inspirational. Clearly
Oh.
मैंने उससे कुछ सीखा नहीं. I still have time. Both Megha and Megha can vouch for that. Thank you. So,
Even I
well,
can vouch
thank
Yeah,
for
you.
so
I
that.
I think
think
for Tejas, I would just, I don't know if work-life balance is a question also. I think even before COVID, or I mean, I'm assuming post-COVID also, उसको पता था कि मेरी priority आज क्या है. He would
mm,
just know it on work purpose, and he managed to deliver that always. So, I don't know, Tejas, I don't know work-life balance is a problem for you or not.
No,
But
not.
yeah, which is exactly
Yes.
if I got it right. I think he knew his priorities really well. So I don't think he ever faced that kind of thing.
Yes.
Whereas actually, we both came on camera just to say that you haven't learned anything. Hope you realize
I
that.
kn-
I
I
agree.
knew that, and this question was more on the point of from coming from the young ones who actually are still trying to understand if they have got into the right industry and everything. I think for them, they just brilliantly answered. It's about being disciplined and the way you are working, prioritizing things, starting the day at 9 a.m. I don't know how does that happen. I'm still trying to do that. If you'll do that, you will be Tejas. That's amazing, Tejas. Thank you so much. Megha Jain, you can put in your words as well.
No, no, I just want to say thank you. This was a great
Thank you
Mhm.
so
session.
much.
Thanks for your inputs. I have there are a couple of questions in the
Oh yeah, I
chat if
didn't see
we
that.
can quickly take
Okay.
that.
Sure.
Tejas, I had a question. Just
Yeah.
generally want to ask because this has been the reason why people really wanted to understand that if you could get in an external client specifically. Is there a need, or is there a kind of special thing that you guys are looking at from an agency delivery perspective, which you think post-COVID has gone from a miss, or you think that generally as an agency culture ये अभी miss होना शुरू हो गया है, or because all of us here would want to understand that more clearly, because that is where we take back everything, right? We deal with clients on a daily basis. Is there
Hmm.
anything that we should, uh, I think, be cognizant of fact from any of your experiences with the agency, or that we should take away with?
Uh, I don't think so. I mean, in personal space and opinion, I don't think so. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, I mean, I haven't seen much difference, but agency to agency, I've seen differences. And again, the agency which is more business inclined has always been received better by the brand, right? And it's a mutual relationship. Abhi, if the brand does not want to share any data, then I don't know of how much an agency also can do. I do understand that point. But at the end of the day, I mean, when I was in HUL, I know we worked with Fulcrum, or when I was in PhD, etc. I think the interaction with the brand and the more business focus it is, rather than coming with acha ye kuch to naya property hai le lo, which also is great, right? Because you
Mm.
can't miss out on innovations, you can't miss out on the rest. But I would put it on agency versus agency on what is required. And like, and now, for example, from a much newer brand, that is Plum, uh, again, because now probably these are not, I mean, we are not, say, seasoned marketeers like HUL. So all the more an agency hand holding is required in what is the right thing to do, because budgets even for a HUL was limited with relation to how big HUL is.
Mm.
And similarly, even budgets for a smaller brand like Plum is limited with the scale that Plum is at. But the understanding of how to spend that money with bigger brands is probably uh, more established in relative sense to smaller brands. With smaller brands, it's not, right? So that is probably from a smaller brand perspective what an agency needs to bring on board is helping the brand understand ये करने से ये होगा, currently आप ये stage पे हो, this is how you need to divide your money, or you need to spend your money, because that is how what will help your brand grow. I think so. Getting in media principles, the right kind of measurement is very, very, and I know I've focused on principles, measurement, and business, because for me, I think that those are the differentiators. Because going out and doing a plan, like, I don't know, for lack of better, was a Facebook plan, one agency versus the other, what is going to change a lot, right? I mean, it's discipline principle, how you're measuring that Facebook plan, and why are you doing that? Is that related to the business? Is
Mm.
what is where the agency differentiation happens. So even from what I see, from what people are asking internally, it's the same thing, that the agency that we work with, can they help us understand of how do we spend our money better, because we don't have all the tools that an HUL has. Probably we don't have the experience of what a bigger brand like HUL has. So yeah.
Hand holding.
Yes.
That's a very, very pertinent question, Megha. Thank you. I guess there is one question from Bernadine over here.
Okay.
She has asked that if, simply put, if there is a relationship between TOM, top of mind, with brand loyalty. I had asked you about the sales part, but I
Yeah.
guess brand loyalty is a very valid point to be made out there. What do you think about that?
Uh, I don't think so. Anyone's test. I mean, at least I don't know top of my mind, and it's a top of my
Mm.
mind question. Is there a correlation to brand loyalty?
Mm.
Uh, but I think, see, top of mind and spont are looked at it in two different perspectives.
Mm.
Top of mind matters a lot when you are a leading brand within the category, or it's kind of like a duopoly market, right? That is
Okay.
where, because there are only two brands, so उसमें आप spont का क्या करोगे? People will
Mm.
list both the brands, and top of mind matters a lot. Similarly, spont matters a lot where, I mean, it's a highly competitive market, like say makeup as a category or
Yeah.
skincare as a category, for example. But pointing it to brand loyalty, I don't think so. Probably will also be looked at, in my opinion, because as media are prime, I mean, while saliency is a job, but even getting in newer customers matters a lot, and for brand loyalty, experience of the product, etc., also comes into play. So even if you were to draw a correlation, from what I can think, top of my head right now, I don't
Mm.
think so there might be a very strong correlation, or even if there is it correlation, or is it a causality is what needs to be
Okay. Yeah,
understood. Yeah.
absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
if it's a causality, I don't know, are you supposed to read that data or not? Yeah.
True, true. That
Hope
cannot
I've
be
answered the question.
inferred easily that way.
Exactly.
There's a follow-up question on that. What do you think should be the best measure to, for loyalty? Is there any
Repeat
measurement
rates,
metric?
I don't think so there is
Repeat
ever.
rates,
Yeah, yeah,
especially
yeah.
for the category that you're working on. That would be the
Absolutely.
most crucial
I
because of the
mean,
cycle. Hmm.
Absolutely. So it's repeat rates, it's your penetration. If your penetration is consistently or growing, if
Hmm.
you're because if you're losing a lot of existing customers and if you're getting new customers, then obviously that
The
means
loyalty is
so
dipping. Yeah.
penetration also helps you understand brand loyalty. And obviously
Hmm.
these brand track stores do give you what is your brand love score kind of. So they do
Hmm.
help you understand that, but that will just that can be decoded as that if I'm spending 100 rupees, if my brand love score is very high, then the impact or the effectiveness of that 100 rupees will be much higher. Right. So that is where brand loyalty or brand love or brand power, which Kantar nowadays reports measures, is sort of lot of importance.
Also reported. True that. Great. I think, Tejas, I'll have to excuse you because
Yes.
as we had committed, we won't take all of the time that you have given us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for coming over here, letting us understand everything. If
Hopefully
there
I
are,
have helped. Don't know. Yeah.
I mean, there are very less
Yeah.
questions, so I believe everything got absorbed very quickly,
Yes.
right? And on top of that, if there are any other questions, I will indeed pass on to them. I mean, to you, sorry, from them
Yes.
over to you, and that we
Definitely.
can get
Would
them
love to
addressed.
answer if I have the answer. Yes.
Good, great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tejas. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you,
so much for
Tejas.
inviting me. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All
Bye.
right, take care, guys. Thank you so much.
वेंडर है, क्लाइंट है, और क्या है?